Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Unity Radiant Light. This is Sunday, August 30th, 2023, and we're continuing our series on Hell in the Hallway, Light at the Door, a book written by Reverend Ellen Davenport, a wonderful book. Today we're going to be talking about moving through the hallway, and I am Reverend Cherie Ruffo. I will be leading the talk today. And as we move into this area of moving through the hallway, I want to go back and talk about what a hallway is. We know that um, hallways are the times in our life when we feel like we enter them, we feel like we may not have control over a situation. Things are going to be, we're hoping for the best. And when we get into a hallway like this, maybe we lost a job, or we have a diagnosis that we weren't expecting, or just don't know what the next step is going to be. Maybe our partner has left us. It could be a death, a child, a parent, a loved one, whatever that is, all of a sudden we're going to find ourselves in this hallway of change. And when we're in the hallway, we have to remember that this is something that I I know that has happened to me more than once, and it happens, and a lot of times this is where most of my growth, spiritual growth, happens. And the thing we want to do when we're in this hallway is to know that it's not going to last forever. So you don't want to decorate your hallway. You don't want to put furniture in there. You don't want to move into the hallway and get stuck in that situation, because that door that's going to be there is going to be opening us up to our new life, our new normal, whatever that's going to be. We know coming through those hallways can be tough. And sometimes when one of these things happens, it requires us to dig to the very deepest levels of our life. We know that there's soul growth happening and that there are ways to go through it. So we've talked about moving into this hallway. Today we're going to talk about moving through the hallway. And what we need to, when we look at this hallway, we're all of a sudden in it. What has happened in your life? And what happened the last time you were in a hallway? Or maybe you're in a hallway right now. What is that thing that's happening in your life? And the way that we move through this hallway when we're experiencing this situation is to feel what we feel, not turn away from it. To walk through grief, if you're going through grief. And most hallways will have some sort of grief. Even if it's you've lost a job and you're moving into a new one, there's going to be a grief for that loss. And also, it's really important to remember to allow others to help you through this hallway, not to allow them to help you get stuck. Because this is a fluid movement. This is when you're coming through this hallway and you're going to exit this hallway. So when we're in the hallway, it's really easy to blame others for us being there or to blame ourselves. We ask the questions like, how did I let this happen? How did God let this happen? Am I the only one that's ever asked that question? Because sometimes we look at that and say, how could this happen? Why didn't I know about this ahead of time? Why didn't I see the signs that this was coming? You fill it in, whatever those emotions that you're having in that conversation that you might be having with yourself or others about it. Just not in a judgment way, but just think about what that conversation is. So now we're not only in our hallway, but when we do this, we ask those questions and we are we stop in the hallway and we say, how could this happen? How could God let this happen? What we're doing is we're creating our own hell, hence the name Hell in the Hallway. So we have to look at that and say, how do I move through this hallway? Maybe parts of it are going to be hell. It's going to be tough because we make the decision that we know that this is fluid and we're going to move out of it, it doesn't stop the grief that might come, especially when you lose a loved one or facing a terminal illness. But we don't want to create more hell than we already have. So what do we do now that we're there? How do we move through this hallway? So we make a decision. Instead of just being in hell, we can use this time to uncover the infinite possibilities available to you. And what do we mean by that? Because you might say, well, I have a terminal illness. So how is that infinite possibilities? I see one. happening here? What we have the decision to make and we have the choice to make is to use that time well. Because we all have our exit. We're all going to be exiting this plane. This is what we come here and we do. How are we going to use that time? Are we going to use it to maybe make peace with somebody we need to make peace with? To maybe use it for opening up to new possibilities, new feelings. Maybe our meditation or prayer might become deeper. Our lives become more full. That's what I mean by infinite possibilities. It's how we navigate this. We have all the possibility of making that decision to navigate it well. I was talking the last time when we opened up this subject, Hell in the Hallway, and I just talked about what had happened when I lost my house. We were in the recession, my nonprofit went under, and my marriage had ended. There were so many things happening. There were so many endings, and it was hell in that hallway. But when I really stopped to think about it, I wasn't tied to taking care of 4 acres anymore because it was a lot of work. I didn't have time to date because I was working or I was clipping trees or cutting the lawn. I didn't have that responsibility anymore. I was so busy building my company that I didn't have time for me. So I had put myself in this hallway and I was trying to stay in it because that's what I knew and that's what I really wanted. And I saw having that home as everything to me because that's what I knew. But once I surrendered, and this is a step we're going to talk about, to that, it opened me up automatically to infinite possibilities. Now, it doesn't mean that's just going to open and stay that way. At that point, we still have to make a choice. And the choice to explore what the infinite possibilities can be because we can make, we don't want to make choices that are going to make a situation worse. Keep it the same. We want it to be better. So I had to really go within at that point, do my work, and decide where I wanted to be. What did I want to create with this life of mine? And one thing that I learned is at that point in life, it's not that way anymore, but my greatest fear was losing my home. My greatest fear was not having that security. I lost it. And you know what? It didn't kill me. It didn't even maim me because I faced my greatest fear. And not only did I survive, but I built a life better than I ever could have dreamed of at that time. It opened me up to things that I hadn't even considered as a possibility. In a very short period of time after that, I met the love of my life. I was less stressed because of the house. I built my company, and instead of surviving in it, we were thriving. And it wasn't always easy. I'm not going to say, wow, I made that decision and then it was changed. It took a period of time as those changes came, but I allowed the idea that I could have something better and that I deserve something better to happen. Seems healthy and amazing, right? Wow, you did that. Boy, that was great work. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, it wasn't my first reaction. That was not. And any of you that knew me at the time know it wasn't my first reaction. Because the circumstances in the hallway aren't dependent on what put me there. Because not all circumstances are the same. Divorce is very different from a diagnosis. Job loss is very different from a divorce. And sometimes we experience more than one thing at a time. In a very short period of time for me, I'd gone through a divorce, lost my job. My friend had died and then came back. As most of you know, my business partner Karen, she had had a heart attack and she was dead for 4 minutes. And then she was revived and and she was also my business partner, had a long period of rehabilitation from that, but came back and she went through her hell in the hallway and to a point where she was thriving and now she's in a hallway. I'd lost my home and 2 dogs within 10 weeks of each other. So there was a lot going on in my life at that time. So whatever you're dealing with, you're going to be able to deal with it. And sometimes it might take a while. So what are you dealing with right now in your life? What are the things? Are you in a hallway? Or to somebody you to know very close and near and dear in a hallway? Is your organization in a hallway? Because that can happen too. The spiritual work is the same. Doesn't matter what got you into the hallway, it's the same spiritual work. Because the principles are always the same when we apply them to each situation. And sometimes the work we do using these principles is not easy. If someone had told me that I should meditate right after my husband told me he was ending our marriage, I would have had a few things to say about it, and they probably wouldn't have been that kind. Because at that point, I couldn't focus on a thing for longer than 30 seconds. I didn't have that. That was not available to me at that time because I was entering the hallway. Know that that's okay too. It doesn't mean you're a failure because some of the tools that you use, either you can't use at the moment, or you may have to like, change how you're using them. And when that happened to me, it lasted for a while. I don't remember how many months it was, but I know it was at least a few, 3 to 5 months, where I had to let that meditation practice change in a way that I could adjust through the hallway. I remember someone saying to me at the time too, they were like, well, the problem is you're not meditating. We need to try some advanced metaphysics on you. I'm going to teach you the new tools so that you can move through this process quickly. The truth is, I wasn't meant to move through it quickly. I was meant to do my work and not bypass my feelings and thoughts and beliefs because I was in this hallway. We're meant to understand, we're meant to stay in the now, the present, to understand what needs to change. Because what's happening when something happens in our life, it's our soul's journey for new knowledge, new lesson, whatever that is. I remember when my ex-husband and I went to counseling, and it was there that we ended our marriage with the counselor. And he said, great, I'm done with counseling. He left. But I decided not to because I knew that I had my work to do. I wanted to work through what had happened in my marriage. It was a 20-year marriage. I wanted to resolve things from my childhood because I'm a survivor of child abuse. How did that impact my marriage and the way things ended up? I wanted to resolve what needed to be resolved within me so that I wouldn't end up there again. I was determined. So I had that when I thought about my hallway, there was that glimpse of hope that I was going to be able to have another relationship again that would be really successful. So I stayed. I spent my 40th trip around the sun, healing from that situation, healing from the other things that were happening. My realization during this process is that the advanced curriculum that people were talking about, when that person said to me, well, let's do some advanced metaphysics and let's try these things so you can move through this more quickly. That's not where you get your PhD. It's through the experience you have in your life. It's through the journey that you take while you're walking through this. You have your spiritual understanding. It's when we move from intellectual understanding to the 18 inches, the longest journey, to the heart-centered thinking and spiritual understanding. And these experiences that you have and how you respond to them is how you earn that PhD. So how do we use our spiritual principles to go through these types of situations? And we know any of the Unity Truth students watching or hearing this know that the 5 basic Unity principles, we know that God is all good and active in everything everywhere. So by understanding and accepting that there is one power and one presence in the world, in the universe, God the good, God is good. And we have to understand that no matter where we are, especially when we're in the hallway, we have to understand that there's a greater power at work here. I'm naturally good because God's divinity is in me and everyone. So by understanding that power is everywhere and in everyone, including ex-spouses, family, bosses that may have fired us, whatever it is, the doctor that might have been delayed in giving us a diagnosis, whatever. God is there. We have to understand that that's the basis of this. And where I create my experiences by what I choose and think and what I feel and believe, I choose my experiences by this. But this can be a really charged statement for someone in the hallway. You say to someone, well, you chose this experience to have cancer. Well, that person may have a few choice things to say, or you chose to get fired from that job, so now you can't pay your rent that's coming up. I think we should reframe that and reframe it in the hallway. There's nothing wrong with that. Why don't we let go of that? Just let go of any feelings that we're feeling. We can pray afterwards if you need to. But let's reframe it. Why don't we say I choose my response to this situation by what I think, feel, and believe about this situation. We don't have to say I chose to have this situation, but we can stop and breathe. It's really important to breathe through this and choose how we're going to respond to a situation. Does that feel better? Through affirmative prayer and meditation, I connect with God and bring out all the good in my life. And I have so often had people say to me, I can't pray or meditate right now. Or maybe I can pray, I can't meditate. I can't even think. I can't hold those thoughts for that. It's okay. You don't have to do it in the way you were taught. This is about you. This is about your journey. The way you choose to do it and make it work for you is right. And it's the best thing that could happen. Maybe going out into nature soothes you and helps you and really helps you to feel good. So why wouldn't walking in nature be the perfect place to do a walking meditation? Drop all the rules for what you may have perceived to be meditation in the past. Allow yourself to breathe and walk through that forest and feel the goodness there. Maybe you find that the peace you're looking for is running because you can let go of that anger for what somebody might have done to you when you run. Well, run. That's okay. Run. This is your spiritual tools to use. And whatever you're using is okay. Except you might want to watch because I found some of my spiritual tools to be at the bottom of a ice cream container or a potato chip bag. And that's not necessarily the best thing for you. So yes, if you're gonna have those chips or that ice cream, it's fine, but do it in moderation. And also look at the tool you're using. Is it be something that can harm you? So the fifth principle, I do and give my best by living the truth I know, I make a difference. So it's not enough to know these principles that we just talked about, but we have to live them for full effectiveness. So do what you can do in the hallway by engaging with these principles. It doesn't have to be in even the order 1 through 5. You can move that around. This is your journey through the hallway. Do what's best for you. So maybe we can reframe that one a little bit too. We can say it's not enough to know these principles, but I must live them in small baby steps. Regular step or huge steps. Honor your process, honor yourself. Because remember, God is everywhere present and God is in you. So even if this hallway just feels horrendous, you can put the sacred into it if you can, when you can. Just remember, don't buy furniture, decorate the hallway, don't take up residence there, don't get stuck. And that's the main preface here. The title of this talk is moving through the hallway. That means to move. You don't have to run, make a sprint. Sometimes it may only be a baby step that you make at a time, but to continue the action step of moving. And the work in the hallway really starts, if we're talking about how to move through it, with acceptance. There's no lot of time for acceptance. Everyone's different. just make sure that we get to acceptance at a point that you don't get stuck. I've had a friend it took a year for her to accept the death of her father. She was moving very slowly through that process, but it did happen. And she sought help for that journey to help her move through that grief. And that acceptance process is in place. So now you know you're in this hallway, the door is shut behind you, it's latched, and you need to turn around and understand that you're in this hallway. So instead of seeing something is happening to you, maybe it's something that's happening for you. What is shown up in your life is there for a reason. Somehow it's there for your soul's growth. Somehow it's there for your best and highest good, even though it may not seem like it. And for me, that's the question. If this is happening for me, I often ask, where's the good? And sometimes I have to dig deep to see it because it doesn't look like there's any good there. So what gift is this bringing to your life? Maybe the gift is all your friends are helping you and showing you how loved you are. Or the acknowledgement that you love and you have loved well and you are loved well. That's a precious gift. I often look at when I'm at a celebration of life, I often wonder, I wonder if the person who we're celebrating their life, if they knew that people felt this way for them. That's why I love when we have when someone's in a hallway, they're a tough spot. We have prayer services, private prayer services, and people who come on will often tell a person what they mean for them. I think that is one of the most healing moments that there can be because you're getting a glimpse of your life. You're starting to understand what you mean to others and what they mean to you. So when we're moving through this hallway, we may not have trouble seeing the good, but that's where the power of faith comes in. Faith is trusting and knowing this is not only good, but it will pass, even if you see no way out of that hallway. The author, Ellen Davenport, says, acceptance is knowing that everything that happens in your life brings gifts and answers, your soul's deepest desires, even if you see no rhyme or reason why it happened. That's faith. Understanding that and feeling that takes faith. And I've heard this, though, so often when I'm working with people who may have been diagnosed with something that may be life-threatening. And it comes down to one thing, and the author even says this in the book. I wouldn't wish this on anyone, but I wouldn't trade this experience because of the amazing life growth it has brought me. And so often when people have dealt with cancer, HIV, or whatever it is, when they're out of the hallway, they wouldn't change that. They wouldn't change what happened. And I've noticed that even if people are living a spiritual life, who are practicing all the principles and get that diagnosis or lose that job, will say to me often, why me? Why did God let this happen to me? Why me? We have to understand this power of faith that this is for our soul's desire. Because we know the amazing experiences that are coming from this. We have the faith to know that this is here for a reason. Because this is not the time to move to blame and unforgiveness. It doesn't mean that the person who did the thing that they did to you was right. We're not condoning that ever. But on some soul level, this experience is meant to help your soul's growth. And this also doesn't mean that a person should say, well, this is my soul growth, so be it. It doesn't mean that you should quit all your medical treatment that you're having and just pray and meditate. Some people do that, sometimes it works, and some others combine treatment and prayer with healing. Well, God is everywhere present. God is present in that treatment that you're receiving too. You have to just go inside and listen to yourself and what is the best thing for you. If the person already believes in the third unity principle, I often find too, they will ask me this question. They'll say, why in the world would I create this in my life? Has anyone else experienced that here? I've wondered it. This isn't the time to beat yourself up or give up. And that's because sometimes we will never know why this happened in our lives. This is a time we take responsibility about becoming a co-creator with God. We do that with the third unity step. This is a time we can check in with ourselves every day and say, am I actually feeling that one power, one presence in my life? Am I really taking good care of myself? Am I tuned into listening to the messages that can help me through this process? We don't have to turn this into a blame game for blaming ourselves or anyone else. What we can do is forgive where we need to forgive. And sometimes that takes a while. But then allowing ourselves to use the tools that we know so well, feeling appreciation in the everyday things, or just in the moment, or just the appreciation that I got up out of bed today and moved to the couch with what I have going on. One thing that's the gift that we can give ourselves in this by opening ourselves up to such a deep level is feeling compassion towards others and things. When we're going through deep grief, coming out of it, when we are dealing with something in our life, it often will open us up to a level of compassion that we've never experienced before. That we can look at people and say, well, yeah, they did the wrong thing, but maybe they did the best they could, not condoning it. There's some things that are never right to condone, but to allow for that moment of compassion to rise. I've seen people get well, find an amazing job, whatever it is. It can happen. You can co-create or create it to happen. And even if the pearl in your life doesn't come from living fully, when you feel appreciation, that can help it. That can move it to the next step forward. Seeing people as who and what they are, allowing us to open our eyes just a little bit more. This is where the power is, though. This is what I think. The pearl. The power is when we do that. We take responsibility for getting well. Not in a, well, I'm sick, it's my fault, but what can I do at this moment? What process can I use? Opening ourselves up to these possibilities. Because acceptance leads to surrender. And this is where we allow the pain to go, where we've been maybe resistant to let that go. It's when we're saying, this is not how it should be in my life. This is not the story that I want written anymore. I'm going to change that. I have the power to surrender, allow this greater power to come into my life even more fully and see where it leads. And the author said, it's in giving up the stubborn resistance that this is how life should be in any given moment. So let's stop there and change our beliefs about maybe hitting rock bottom. I often hear people say to me, well, they're going to have to hit rock bottom before they're going to change. I don't believe that. I believe it may happen, that maybe their journey, their decision in that journey, but I don't believe we have to hit rock bottom for it. And don't get me wrong, a lot of people are still going to hit that rock bottom because that's in their belief system. And some may even hit that rock bottom and find a trap door and go even further down that rabbit hole. But it doesn't have to be that way. When we go into that moment of surrender, we feel the peace and we trust and say, you know what? I've done everything I can. I'm trusting that all is going to be well. No matter how things turn out, we've changed. And we can say that over and over again if it's necessary to you. Acceptance that this is the way things are and surrender. All is well, even if I can't see how this is going to turn out well. There's good here if we choose to see it. And that, my friends, is not an easy step. It's not, okay, this is the next step to take. It takes a deep faith, but you have it. And the spiritual tool in the hallway, most important, is forgiveness. And I know we talk about this in everything that we talk about. It always seems to come back to this, doesn't it? So no matter what put you in that hallway, you probably have someone to forgive, yourself or maybe somebody else. That boss who fired you, the partner who walked out, maybe the doctor who missed an early diagnosis, the parent who needed so much care at the end of their lives. You know, the Greek word, the author talks about this, the Greek word to forgive means to untie the knot. Untie that knot that is holding us, maybe blocking the flow, and let it go. We have to untangle ourselves from the past in order to move forward, to move through this hallway. And just as a reminder, as we're going through this process, I'm not saying to condone really bad behavior. I'm never, ever going to ask you to do that. But we have to untangle that knot in ourselves to move on. And oftentimes the healing comes from when we forgive ourselves of something that's happened in our past. We can't change it, but the act of forgiveness or self-forgiveness will immediately help us get unstuck. There's a story in the book, Hell in the Hallway, about a woman who was brutally raped by a stranger. And there's no circumstance that will make what the stranger did okay. Absolutely none. And she was glad that when he went to jail. But she also knew it was not okay for her to hate him for the rest of her life. Because when she did that, she put herself in prison. By allowing this one situation to control the rest of her life, she was never going to leave that hallway. So for the forgiveness for her didn't happen overnight. It took quite a long time. But that's what she worked on. And one day she took a bunch of teddy bears to a rape crisis center. For the first time, she didn't have all those feelings wrapped up around it. They'd gone. She didn't even realize it. She was healed and she was free. So we know as we can move through this, prayer is a crucial part of the hallway. And when you know people that are in the hallway, praying for them helps. One man mentioned in the book was in a coma, and during it, he said he could feel people's prayers. And I love his description of it. He said it was like a drowning man might feel the nudge of a bottlenose dolphin to the surface of the water. He was under, and he felt those prayers, and they were pushing him up. So when we pray for ourselves and we pray for others, it's an active way to walk through the hallway. And there's two prayers that the author gave us that I'm going to close with today that she found to be most powerful. One is, she said, reveal what needs to be revealed and heal what needs to be healed, which is our information that we use in meditation. We'll do it in a couple moments. How? Reveal to me what needs to be revealed, because that is helping us get unstuck. And heal what needs to be healed. The other prayer that she says is most powerful, it says, lead me where you lead. Speak to me in ways I cannot possibly misunderstand. I'm a little nervous when I hear that one because I keep waiting for that 2x4, that universal 2x4 to whack. So I generally stick with the first prayer, but it's powerful. I might change that a little bit and say, lead me gently where you lead, and speak to me gently in ways I cannot possibly misunderstand. We can change the words when we need to. So our time in the hallway is powerful. It can be one of the most spiritually illuminating times for us in our life. If you're in a hallway now, or you return to it at a later date, because we all experience this, use the hallway to be a powerful change agent in your life. A time where you can make a course correction to pivot to a new way of life. Because that door you're going to go through at the end is going to be a new life. And I know your next question for me is going to be, how do we get out of the hallway? But that's for next time. And before that, Reverend Kathleen will be talking about how can we not resist. She's going to be really honing in on the resistance because that's such a big topic next week. So we're on this journey together. We're understanding more about the hallway. We're grateful for each one of you. And as we travel this, we can hold hands, we can support each other, and we can love each other. Namaskar. So as we just kind of relax for a moment, and there's that prayer again that I promised you. As we say our affirmation, I am open and receptive to the spirit of truth, healing in me what needs to be healed, and revealing to me what needs to be revealed. I just invite you to breathe in on that. Whew. And as we take that next deep breath in all the way down, we release it and we start to release some of the anxiety. No matter where you are in your life, you are loved. You are supported. As we breathe into that, we just relax and begin to go a little bit deeper. And as we go a little bit deeper, we gently acknowledge maybe the journey we're going through the hallway right now. And we look at the first thing, acceptance. Have you accepted what's happened? And as we open to that, we feel the energy around it. If it feels charged, gently, we're going to see that energy not as charged as it was, releasing. What door did you walk through that's closed? And as we just look at this, observe it, not absorb it, the energy around it, we look at this and we say, we invoke the power of faith. It's the foundational of the 12 powers for us. Power of faith that we have, knowing that everything's going to be okay, even if we can't see the answer at this moment. And we feel it in our bodies, in every cell of our bodies. They come in the form of relaxing, come in the form of that knot in your stomach may just start to let go. Knowing that whatever is happening here, we can look at it a little differently and ask where the good is. And as we move through this acceptance and we surrender to it, know that I don't know how this is going to end, but I know it's okay. Just breathe through that. We are stepping into being a creator, a co-creator with God, consciously drawing this one presence and power. It's always there. Our awareness is there. It's high now. We know it's there. We want to feel that one power and presence fully within us. As we go into the silence, we just allow ourselves to sit in that energy for a few moments. There is one power and one presence in the universe. God the good. God is good. That power and presence is in everyone, including me. I just invite you to breathe in that power, the awareness of it, and feel it in every cell of your body. You may feel singing in your veins, tingling, surging through you as we allow this healing to work within us this morning, which we'll be doing a little bit deeper a little later. This power and presence is as me. Beautiful soul, you're here for a reason. Right here in this moment of time, to acknowledge the magnificent that you are, to understand that we can use the power of our feelings, our thoughts, and our beliefs to do good in our own lives and in the lives around us. And we're so grateful for Jesus, our way shower, for teaching us this. As we acknowledge for all people who are praying for healing, we see it done already. It is done. They may still be in a hallway, but this is done. So we see prosperity in every person's lives. Lives full of peace and joy, the inner joy that comes from within. As we live this life in the substance of love. Love is the basis of all things. Jesus, our way shower, came here and taught us this, giving us this blueprint. We are so grateful for it, for all the guides and the masters and the teachers who so joyfully share these lessons with us. We say thank you, and so it is.